Actually, before we go to Noah, I have to read these comments from the chat room. If I could speak tonight, Matthew Johnson said that privilege is intersectional, not just one thing or another. Brownie Beastie, interesting name, said, I really like this discussion because there are different kinds of privilege and they all work together. Umar Soris in the chat room says that, like it or not, white privilege trumps them all. And there's one other question here that came, and I want to ask you guys, do you think white privilege trumps capitalistic privilege? And the reason whites had privilege was because they were the ruling class with all wealth. Racism was created to maintain that status, right? So, so basically what they're saying, the last question is, do you think that white privilege is really just a product of capitalistic ruling class wealth privilege?
Well, let's Noah, what do you think?
Hang on, let me make sure I have Noah's mic on. Go ahead, Noah, you're live.
That is actually about a year ago. I had an argument with my friend. His mother is actually a Hillary superdelegate, but he's kind of pro Bernie now. And we were talking about that because we were talking about how the system of capitalism, and especially when we talk about American capitalism, that whereby, you know, property and rights and power has been racialized by the creation of one group as slaves and property and another group as the wealthy ownership class. Like that in of itself, the capitalist system itself is what like really enshrines the issue of racism and privilege in our society. However, I mean, you know, so I do think that we deal with the issue of capitalism because it is the money, the access, that power does like put this overarching. I can't think of the word, but it does. It's like it's an overlay on top of everything else.
Right.
I do think there is still white privilege because the issues with racism and stuff predate our current capitalist system, but capitalism definitely magnifies and enhances it. And then I also think that to one of the other questions about, you know, or maybe that's that same question about white privilege and what trumps, you know, poor white people, like I've mentioned before, I lived in Appalachia for 7 years in West Virginia. Poor white people, I mean, like, I would, they're just light-skinned black people to some extent. There is some privilege and benefit to being white, but at the same time, when there's systematic disinvestment in your communities, when your children are being, when your water sources are being poisoned, when you have lack of funding in your education, there's no job development. I mean, are you really benefiting from the fact that you're white? Maybe you'll be lucky and go move someplace else, but for the most part, I'm not going to say that's exactly the same, but there are a lot of similarities. They're living in, you know, some of these rural communities as we see in some of our urban, you know, depressed, you know, inner city communities as well. And it's all comes from more of that capitalist, systematic disinvestment. We're just going to exploit, and not really anyone caring about whether, okay, these people are white like me too, so maybe I should throw them a bone. And I mean, it's just, so there is I think there is some truth to that last comment.
Yeah, I definitely see the layers, and I definitely agree. Listen, HA, you're more than welcome to stay and hang out, but we got to move the conversation along. I love the article. I love what you exposed, and more than anything else, I love that you had the entire Hillary Twitter trying to defend her against white privilege, which
they love me.
Everybody knows. She clearly.
Can I just say something? I find it so fascinating that he says that Joy-Ann Reid is a Hillary supporter. I told you what she told me last week. She claims she's neutral. She claims last week she told me that she has no dog in the fight, and she's going to write in Shirley Chisholm on her ballot in New York in April that she's about the process. And I find it fascinating, you know, basically what you said about the book and stuff, the way she goes in for her, not against her. She never goes against her. It's interesting, considering the alleged neutrality.
AJ, what's up? You want to stay or you got to get out of here? What's up?
I'm going to go. But thank you so much, Ben, for this wonderful opportunity. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, my pleasure, man. H.A. Goodman, writer extraordinaire. He's everywhere. And he left before I could ask him the last question. That's all right. All right. Now let me see if my mouth is operating correctly. Can I speak correctly now at this point? All right, let's move on. I want to get to Nis. I want to get your last word on it, and then I want to shift gears over to Hillary Clinton, Black Lives Matter. Go ahead, Nis, while I pull this video up.
Okay, so I would say what trumps what. I think if you become poor enough then white privilege doesn't help you. If you are so dirt poor that you live in a neighborhood that the cops have classified as just a troubled neighborhood, then your whiteness does not help you. But anywhere between that and all the way up to the pinnacles of power, of course you have white privilege, and that helps you greatly. But I think from a economic middle class perspective, it will help you the most at the economic middle class level. If you get beyond that, power speaks, money speaks, and money is green. I mean, of course, you have white privilege in the way that America holds down countries that are primarily brown or black to the benefit of the corporations. But in my mind, that has as much, if not more, to do with the fact that cutthroat capitalism, which is prevalent in America, it relies on the continued expansion of cheap labor.
Right.
And cheap labor is racism provides cheap labor, and cutthroat capitalism always goes the route, even without thinking about it, that is the easiest.
Absolutely.
Which actually, in my mind, is the biggest slap in the face to everyone who's ever experienced racism, everyone who's ever been hung or whipped, that it has been done with no real malice, just to make money. It's
just a transaction to them.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're gonna kill me, at least hate me. At least make it personal. And the guys in the boardroom, they don't hate you. They just hate a diminished rate of return. And the guy who kills you, he might do, but the guy who is orchestrating it, who is setting it in motion, who might not even know that it's actually happening down way, like 20 rungs below him. I mean, he doesn't.
Let's do this. Damn, if you're gonna kill me, at least hate me. Yeah, but I some of that I really hear. I want to shift gears here, guys.